In just over a 2-week period, both Steve Mira and myself, Barry Fitzgerald, travelled enough miles to take us completely around this planet, and then some, in an attempt to find answers. Scientific answers to finally solve that age-old question if we are truly alone in this universe. The results are in, and this is our story.
In June 2017, the internet exploded with images and video of a mysterious mummy discovered in South America. It has become known as the three-fingered hybrid. But what do we really know about this discovery? My name's Steve Merra, and I'm an investigative researcher based here in the UK. Join me and my cameraman and fellow researcher Barry Fitzgerald as we travel to the Southern Hemisphere and uncover the mysteries surrounding this discovery, securing much more information and interviewing the people that bore this explosive find. Against all odds, we must navigate our way to a secret location to view the body amidst government attempts to seize the evidence and capture those involved. This is our journey, and we'll be keeping you up to date every step of the way. Obviously got some delays today. Hopefully we'll be back on track very shortly, but as it stands at this moment in time, we're just going to have to join the queue, just try and get all this stuff through as best we possibly can. After a delay, Manchester International, I believe there was some type of bomb-scared evacuation. It was actually hands-on, absolutely hands-on. We had to fight and scratch our way through the crowd, battling with the equipment, battling with the heat because it was so humid. We're now just cruising over Madrid due to land very short. As you can see, it's beautiful out there. It's 35 degrees. But we're already absolutely exhausted. That's been long before. We've got a lot more air miles to cover, and of course to the footfalls of the Andes in Southern America. It's a long way. We're getting there step by step. We're just going to chisel away at the miles. We're now boarded the plane at Madrid. Big plane, all the way, 12-hour flight into Peru. It's going to be a long flight, so we'll see how things go. I'm tired already.
This is the remaining leg of our mammoth journey, which will take us to Cusco, a town hidden in the Andes mountain range. But before we departed from Lima Airport, we happened upon a strange encounter which left both of us a little unnerved by what we were about to walk into.
We're just leaving Lima Airport actually. We just sat there myself and Dave, and somebody came over to talk with us. A conversation exchanged where we were pretty much warned about not talking loud about. It sounds all crazy, all this, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I don't know what the bloody hell I've got myself into. I'm absolutely paranoid. I've never been like this before. But what's really interesting is that some information was exchanged. We're going to be meeting up with this person, and it was totally shocked. It just came out of the blue. And there's a lot more that seems to be going on that meets the eye, and it sounds like something straight out of a covert film. I've never seen anything like it, but we can't talk too much about this at this time. We're on the plane we're leaving Lima Airport. We'll get back to the hotel and we'll be able to explain a little bit more, but it's at this moment in time, God, talk about cloak and dagger.
Well, we've finally got to the hotel in Cusco, literally with 15 minutes spare. We're going to be meeting up with Thierry. He's the middleman between the discoverer of the mummy and the footage that we received back in April of this year. We're going to be meeting up with him very shortly to finding out what's exactly been going on, and we'll keep you posted as it happens.
Steve just had enough time to change before the meeting, and I had to set up a camera to record it.
Yeah. Okay, they never been there, but they're talking on behalf of...
Right, so the information.
Sí, es muy delicado porque es un asunto de huaquero.
Yes, it's very delicate to go there because they haven't got experience going there.
Okay.
We were determined to get as much information as possible.
Es el sitio.
Yeah, he said one of the more important points is the place where they found that they can't say where it is.
That's
Dicen
okay,
que
secret.
hay una energía electromagnética muy fuerte en la zona.
They say in that place where they found it, there is a very high electronic magnetic.
Y
Okay.
que no ha tocado 10% del
They
sitio.
didn't touch 10%, not even 10%.
Han visto entidades biológicas vivas.
And they also saw live biological
No, células.
Entities.
Right.
Y de este tamaño, 40 centímetros,
This size.
y de más de 2 metros,
And 2 meters.
que se han escapado en los
They
túneles.
escaped.
We wanted to know where they found this place and what was on the inside.
Más o menos a lo que indican, lo que han encontrado. Es un cerro y
They found a mountain. Yes.
es un bocarón como niño, ¿no?
It's like a
Hay que
cave
entrar y de ahí se
mine.
baja,
And then
sería
you have to
esto,
go down.
y de ahí hay que bajar más o menos 2 metros,
Yeah, 2 meters,
y
go
de ahí
down.
nuevamente, y ahí han encontrado que son varios túneles.
And then from there they found different tunnels.
Salones y túneles de varios niveles.
Different levels, tunnels with different levels.
The third and final individual from the internal circle of the Inkari Institute arrived at the meeting.
He said, no, esto no.
Hi.
Mira,
Hi.
Eduardo
I'm Steve.
Venezuela,
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet
es
you.
el responsable comunicación del Instituto Inkari.
The implications that this may have for world religions is also brought up in the meeting.
He believes that this is not a fraud, then it can change the world.
It could.
Yes.
Hay muchas implicaciones culturales, political, religious.
Yes.
Pero eso nosotros no lo manejamos.
Yes, he said that there is many implications like political.
It could change. It could change the world.
They don't want to be involved in that.
Okay.
What's the one is the truth.
It's not a fake.
Yes.
Yeah, that is not
Yeah.
fake.
If it's not a fake.
If
Siempre tenemos la duda nosotros.
they're always in doubt.
Our heads were left spinning from what we had been told, and there was the promise of obtaining even more information.
Well, we've just finished that meeting with Thierry and a couple of his associates. It was a lot more information than we could ever have imagined for, to be honest with you. And we were quite surprised to find out there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on as well. I mean, dodgy dealings. We're talking an international racket here of European and Asian people, hierarchy, got a lot of money, those sort of people that we're talking about might be buying artifacts illegally. And that seems to be the case, and it's absolutely fascinating. But the more we get into this, the worse, the bigger the hole is getting. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you just want to stop, but we are finding more and more out, which is just expanding and expanding, opening new doors of research and information, which is all a bit worrying, to be quite frank. We've got some more information coming tomorrow. We've got more meetings to do. We've got more filming to do. And we're going to be told even a lot more things tomorrow, which we've already had an inkling of what's coming. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. So we'll keep you in tune as to what unfolds when and where it happens. Thierry is battling to keep artifacts in the country. It's as simple as that. He thinks it's important that they stay in Peru. And of course, some of these things, probably a lot of these things, are actually getting out there. Some of the things that we've actually been told is absolutely incredible. To be honest with you, it's one of those things was apparently, just like the Roswell footage, the Roswell incident, this foil that unfolds itself, apparently some of this was found and was sold for only $8,000 to somebody in Asia. I mean, that's just incredible. You can't even fathom that. If that was true, if that be true, then there is an international market for this, for these discoveries. We've been told that there's a lot more discoveries to come. We've had an inkling as to what that might consist of tonight, and we were absolutely completely blown away with some of the things that we've been shown, some of the photographs that were being put out in front of us. It's quite incredible. We're going to be finding out a lot more tomorrow. Now, in about 15 minutes, we're going to be catching a taxi and we're going to be heading to the Ikari Institute. We're going to be needing to talk to Thierry about some of the biggest questions that everyone seems to be posing over the internet right at this moment in time. Questions about the mummy. Now, not only that, we're going to be finding out a little bit about Thierry's work, the work that he's done over the years, the findings, and of course a little bit about the Institute itself. So it's going to be really interesting. So stick with us. We hope to get some answers.
Bueno, es un placer, un gusto de recibirte aquí en Cusco, al Instituto Ikari, que es una organización que hemos creado hace unos años atrás para realizar las investigaciones arqueológicas que realizamos aquí en Perú desde hace muchos años.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work that the Institute does and how far do you travel
Bueno, nuestro grupo está dedicado a las investigaciones arqueológicas y solo eso, no tenemos nada de ufología y realizamos entonces investigaciones en la selva amazónica del sureste de Perú en busca de la presencia permanente de los incas en la selva amazónica y en busca de su principal centro de población, que se supone era una ciudad que se llama el Paititi y que los españoles buscan desde el siglo XVI.
And we can see, obviously, from around the room, it's full of books, it's full of research, it's full of reports, projects. So you collect the archives and keep all the information. So more recently, over the internet, there's been some remarkable information that's been released in regarding some unusual bodies that have been discovered.
Han venido a tocar a este timbre
Knocked on the door, right?
con pequeños cuerpos,
Small bodies,
órganos
organs,
y
yes.
una historia loca.
And the most recent discovery, I assume, is Maria.
Eso, bueno, es no es realmente una momia porque tiene todos sus órganos, pero es un cuerpo que nosotros...
With all the organs, yes, so it's a
Sí.
body.
Así que no podemos hablar realmente de momia.
Yes, because they initially said it was a mummy, didn't they? Yes, on
Inicialmente
the
dijeron que
internet.
era una momia.
Sí,
Ya.
pero es
No
es un cuerpo que hemos descubierto en abril. Y en un primer tiempo esta vara de Incari estaba utilizada para examinarlos. Hemos tenido los cuerpos aquí.
Well, there's been a huge amount of interest recently over the internet worldwide in regarding the discovery of this body.
Sí.
And of course, numerous people have been also analysing it. Now, the most unusual thing about this body is that it's got only 3 fingers and only 3 toes.
Sí, casi todos los órganos, los cuerpos tienen esta particularidad
Sí,
de
todos
tener
los
3
cuerpos
dedos.
tienen.
En la zona de Nazca hay una iconografía muy importante, muy interesante, donde se puede ver en las rocas petroglifos así, o en los tejidos, o en la
Nazca.
cerámica, muy personajes
Yes.
que tienen 3 dedos.
3 fingers.
3 fingers and 3 toes.
Three
Now,
toes.
now, what is unusual about Maria is that she's covered in something that looks white.
Yeah.
Does Thierry have any idea what that is?
Los pequeños
The
cuerpos,
small bodies,
los órganos, los cuerpos de los grises
the body of the grace.
habrían sido sacados de 2 sarcófagos.
Yes.
And are they the same color, all white?
No.
Tenían
The
un-
gray, hay
Los gris.
Los grises son grises. No,
Sí,
no
pero
están cubiertos.
sí, tienen un polvo
Ah,
también.
he said that the grays they have a slightly white.
También,
That one?
también los órganos.
Yeah, and it looks like in the past were taken.
Were taken.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what.
And we don't know what this white substance is
that's
on
the
the body
point.
of Maria. We're waiting for analysis.
Y María habría sido sacado del suelo, del
Right.
suelo, habría sido inhumado. No lo han encontrado en un sarcófago.
So Maria may have been taken from one place and moved to somewhere else, and this may be something to do why she's covered in white.
Los vaqueros,
Yeah.
eso no me lo han dicho.
Okay, so we really don't know. We know
Not yet.
we know there's something, but we're not too sure. Analysis is taking
Yeah.
place. Was analysis taking place from the hands as well as the body?
Sí.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're waiting on information coming back from that.
Yeah.
Un detalle muy interesante cuando hemos examinado María,
One detail that they're going to say about
c'est que
Maria.
de los pies tiene sus huellas digitales.
Okay.
Se puede ver sus huellas.
See, no, so you can see the digital.
The digits, the
Yeah,
fingers.
digits.
Así que si es un fraude, le voy a mostrar
Si eso es un fraude,
cómo se hace.
¿cómo se hace?
Si han cortado los dedos, ¿cómo puede tener sus huellas? Esos son los pies de María.
Right, yes.
The foot of Maria.
Sí, yeah.
Son los
Very long.
very, very long. And aquí
Yes.
son las huellas de los pies.
They're very, very hard to fake, dermal ridges, as we know. Fascinating. Wonderful.
Sí, increíble.
Incredible.
Entonces,
Yes, yeah.
si es un fake, si es un fraud,
Si eso sería un...
¿dónde son los cortes, etcétera?
¿Cómo lo han hecho, no?
¿Cómo lo han hecho?
Claro.
Now, looking at the feet,
O sea, mirando la
it doesn't
pintura,
look like Maria would have been able to walk
o sea,
very well.
Claro, es lo que podemos ver en estas fotos. Quizás no caminaba así, sino de esta manera.
Yeah.
No
O sea, no
sabemos.
flat.
Has anybody suggested that it could be amphibian? That they may have been webbed?
Yeah.
No tiene palma.
Pero algo...
No, because they don't, no ears.
Porque no tiene oído.
Sí.
O sea,
Yeah, okay. I was just
Perhaps,
curious
but,
if anybody had made a suggestion, because we're trying to find out what. Lots of people think that it might be extraterrestrial. This is the sort of thing that's on the internet.
Parece, María parece entre los humanos y los grises.
Yeah, Maria looks like between humans
A
and
mix.
the race.
Un
A
híbrido.
mix, a new breed.
Pero es una hipótesis.
Yes.
It is.
Hypothetical.
Yes, yes.
Y tuvimos la oportunidad
They have the opportunity
de examinar
to examine
un bebé híbrido
a baby.
Right,
Hybrid.
right.
que tiene también 3 dedos en cada
Also
mano.
has 3 fingers, 3 toes.
Y hay una posibilidad que
There is a
sea
possibility.
un hijo de María.
Is a-
Nosotros vamos a presentarlo y
ellos lo van a presentar. They're going to present.
tratamos de difundir la información.
They try to let the world know.
Let the world know.
Buscamos el fraude,
Yes.
el fake,
Find a fraud or something.
Yes.
pero todavía no hemos
yet.
encontrado la falla.
Yes. No.
Right. So now we'll talk. What we're getting to now, to the crunch and matter is that there has been some other bodies located as well and discovered, and some of these bodies have. It's a being that seems to have a neck that can move up and down, just like the Steven Spielberg E.T., just as our people are saying, which is fascinating. But they believe that they are absolutely real. They're real, and they are referring to them as small beings, a bit like the alien greys that we hear of today. And again, a lot more information is need to come to light. But some of these bodies, this is a real important part. Some of these bodies have been put together, maybe manufactured by somebody, and we don't know who, and we don't know why. Has the Peruvian government been interested in trying to find out more?
Están preparando una respuesta a la conferencia del 11 para desmentir todo.
Yeah. The
Credible scientists apparently have done some work and are already confirming that there are some unusualities about this. Is there a press conference coming up, a press announcement coming up?
Sí, los canales de televisión van a venir. Hay toda una empresa de Lima que se ocupa de organizar esta conferencia.
Okay, so we're hopefully the more information is going to come to light. We're waiting on analysis. Well, what can I say? I mean, tonight has just been a mind-blowing session of interviews with these guys from the Akari Institute, and to be honest with you, I really do feel for them, because it does seem that they really are being placed right in the middle of this, between a discovery. It's literally, as you heard them say, just turn up here and drop these damn bodies on their counter. I said, hey guys, you deal with it, and at the same time they're trying to figure out, how are we going to deal with this? We've got to deal with the government, we've got to deal with the press. It is a absolute monstrous task that befell them. Now, what's really interesting is that the fact is that they've already stated that some of these bodies have been seen to be doctored, and that's wonderful, because there's sincerity coming from these guys, that they're trying to find the truth, they're trying to figure out, is there anything unusual about these things, especially the latest, which is confirmed. It's not a mummy.
it is a body. This latest body that's been discovered, which we're referring to as Maria. Now, some analysis have been taking place. We asked the questions that, you know, it's covered in white. What is it? Is it some type of plaster? What is it? They don't know. That means that's telling me they've not seen this before on other bodies, which makes it quite unique. But nevertheless, though, they're waiting on information. DNA has been taken from the bodies. DNA has been taken from the hands. We've talked about the bones. We've talked about the feet. We're looking at the anatomy of this thing. What is it? Is it, as they say, could this possibly be a new type of species? We just don't know. We're waiting on this information coming back, and that'll determine exactly what this thing is. In the meantime, these guys are in the middle of a storm, a media storm throughout the whole internet, and there's also things going on in the background as well. It seems to be like a group of individuals from around the world that purchase such items like this from those that discover them, and of course what they've said right from the beginning is they've always wanted to make sure that they keep these things in Peru. So anybody out there who's going to be asking these questions, I suggest travel halfway around the world like we have and talk to these guys face to face, because they have a story to tell. And this story could be potentially one of the biggest ever, as far as I'm concerned.
The early hours of this morning, we received a phone call pretty much out of the blue. It kept us up pretty much most of the rest of the early morning. It was a phone call to say that we might have the opportunity to actually witness some things, artifacts or whatever these will be. I have no idea, but it's got to be kept secret. It's a location that we're not allowed to film. We're not allowed to film the person who's going to be picking us up here at the hotel. We're not allowed to film the driver or the vehicle. And most of all, we're not allowed to take our cell phones with us. Now that sparked off a big debate between myself and Barry here, because we're trying to roll it backwards and forwards what we're going to do, because it does not sit well with us. We've got no communication. If anything goes wrong, we don't know what we're going to do, but we do have a bit of a backup plan. And this is this wonderful little watch on my hand. It does record. So we are going to set that recording. We never know what we're going to get, but we'll just have to see. We're getting close to this location where we're supposed to be being taken to. No idea where we are. It's a bit hard to actually talk. It's very thin, the air. We've been climbing for a good, I don't know if it seems about 45 minutes an hour. I know we started off at 11,000 feet. God knows what we are at this moment in time. But we've been now instructed to turn our cameras off. What also was quite concerning is that we weren't allowed to bring our cell phones with us, and of course that's a big concern, as you can well imagine. But we had to face the situation, and myself and Barry did have this discussion back earlier at the hotel. Should we pretty much just throw our cards in, put our tails between our legs, go back home and just not go through it, because it is a bit concerning, this. But we decided against that. We decided to, well, you know, what the hell, we're going to go for it. We don't know what we're going to be shown. We've been taken to a certain location. I have no idea where we are, but concerned, yes, absolutely concerned. Yeah, we will do. We are turning off the cameras now, and we'll see what happens.
With our high altitude trip over, we were escorted into a building we'd never seen before, and into a room where men waited in surgical dress. Within moments of our arrival, we too had to dress in the same surgical gowns and masks, and body after body was presented to us to film and document.
You can see the teeth. And what we've got here is the side of the skull showing the teeth.
which could be obviously from fish. Doesn't look like human teeth. And you can see the rib cage. It looks like it's manufactured. The arm length down here to its lower than its knees, and of course the feet at the bottom. This is a side profile of that particular X-ray of the body, again confirming that this is in fact been manufactured. Yeah, they have like a gold implant. So what we're dealing with here, is three hands, and what we've been told is that they seem to have some type of implant on top of them, and as we can see, we'll get some close-ups, but as we can see there is a design. It looks like it's gold in coloration, some type of pattern right across the bridge of the hand, and the same for this one. Looks like these two seem to have that marking and this one doesn't. But as you can tell from these, they're very similar, three fingers, and of course we're dealing with, again, a number of extra bones. We're dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they do look to have six with a six at the 6 is the tip. Okay, so what we're actually seeing here is one of the hands. This is representing this metal plate, implant, whatever you want to call it. As we mentioned earlier, it's gold in colour, it has some type of pattern to it, and it does feature on 2 of the hands. It's definitely visible throughout the X-ray. As for what that actually represents, if it's metal, what type of metal, that's currently unknown. Like I say, analysis is currently taking place. Samples have been taken, and you can see the 6 bones in the fingers. And what's very, very interesting is how these are actually put together here, how they're joined, and it looks like there's further bones as well. Now, anatomically, I'm no expert anatomically, but what I can say is that all these particular hands are all going to fall down to the analysis. The independent analysis is taking place. Maybe secondary analysis might be necessary to confirm if this structure is in fact correct. So at this moment, it's open at the moment, we don't know. But what we do know is that we're waiting on analysis to come back to confirm if there's anything authentic about these particular hands. But what is interesting is these are significantly different than what we've just seen in that smaller body. There seems to be a consistent amount of bone and muscle that seems to be evident in the top part of this hand, as they are in the other 2. I wouldn't really want to comment without the analysis confirming that these are actually authentic, but at the end of the day, if anything comes back from these hands that they are or have not been altered, well, it is what it is. As you can see, a hand may be of something which might actually be a new type of species or an old type of species, an unknown species for sure. We're looking at 2 skulls here, and as you can see, the biggest difference here is the elongation, because we've all seen skulls probably from monkeys before, and as you can see, the long elongation, which is something unusual. Though they do have the size of from the front of monkey, but they're very large eye sockets. It does have this long elongation. Apart from that, it does seem to have some cranial ridges. We have a centre cranial ridge, and we have 2 cranial arches coming round on either side, and that's exactly the same for this one, which is almost identical, to be honest with you. There's not much difference between them. We are told that there's something that's inside of this, maybe a little part of the vertebrae, maybe a little bit of bone, but also on this particular one, what we can see is the first part of the vertebrae. As we can see here, we'll take some close-up shots of these. here, and probably similar in weight. Okay, what's interesting about these particular x-rays of the two skulls that we've just been looking at is that the first thing that is interesting, but I want you to know the elongation of these skulls, because this is one of the biggest mysteries about these skulls, is it's purely its shape and the cranial ridging. You can see from the cranial ridging, and you can also see what looks to be some type of membrane on both skulls as it's shaped at the back. And also you can clearly see the jawbone in there, but again, like I mentioned, no teeth. Looks to be large eyes, and we're not too sure what these are, what this represents in the scans, in these x-rays. It has been suggested that there may be some type of metal plates in there. It's a little bit unsure, not too sure. And you can see the centre position here to the vertebrae, and of course causing the skull to be able to be regularly balanced properly. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a secondary body, a little bit longer and larger than the first one that we saw over tonight.
Steve thought it prudent to measure the body, which was 25.5 inches long, and at its widest point between the shoulders was a meagre 7.5 inches wide.
Now what's interesting is, from what we looked at earlier with the two previous small skulls, that this looks to have the same type of skull that we've recently just seen, but in fact attached to the body in this occasion. And if we actually take a measure of this, and we know what we were measuring from last time, is that is coming in at 70 millimetres, which is roughly around about the same size as the previous two skulls, with the same type of cranial ridging, the large eye sockets, and we can see the central point from vertebrae and that long elongation of the head. It's also interesting to note that we've been told from the x-rays that have been carried out is that it looks to have a skeletal, a neck, which may have been adjustable, which may have got shorter and larger. It's interesting to note on its legs that its right hip joint seems to have what is referred to as an implant or some type of mechanism in there, similar to what you probably find in elderly people when they have some type of hip replacement or something of that degree. It's got I have to admit though, it's got a very, very unusual posture, because it doesn't look like nothing I've ever seen before, to be honest with you, the way this is designed here at the top. Very, very straight, very broad, very unusual rib cage. Again, like most of the other things that we've been seeing tonight, has this covering of this white powder. As to what that is still a mystery, and apparently waiting on analysis to come back to confirm what that consists of. So what we're seeing here on the x-ray for this particular body is an oversized clavicle bone here, as you can see across the tops here. Also, what is interesting is that it doesn't seem to have any ball joints to the top part of its arm, so we're not too sure how that would have actually moved or manoeuvred around. Also, what's interesting is that it looks like the bones are knitted, so which would suggest that it is in fact more of an adult than it is a child. And the absence of being able to fit lungs in, we have to ask the question, how did this creature breathe? There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a nasal passage either. So either this is a completely manufactured creature, or it may be something that we've so profound we don't know what it is, and it may not have required oxygen. It may not have been breathing oxygen. We just don't know. We can see obviously the average deformity in the hip, and what looks to be the X-ray capturing a metallic implant or something that's been placed in the hip to maybe strengthen it. It does look like there's an abnormality there, and of course the long neck as well. Very interesting, but really I've not seen anything that's really has grabbed me. But nevertheless, though, we're going to have to wait for the analysis to come back to confirm is this
any known creature at all. A bit of a mystery at this moment in time, but as for the X-rays, I'm not very convinced on this particular one, but who knows? We could be looking at something that we couldn't possibly fathom in our minds, or in fact something which has been, again, manipulated. So what we're dealing with here is a second body, and looks more or less similar in size, though we are told that this represents a female of this species. Notice again the same size of the cranium, the same sort of arching and face features, central position on the vertebrae, slightly shorter neck in this case. But what is most interesting is that it looks like to be some type of implant there, which is metal, which we can clearly identify that on the X-rays. Not too sure what that is, but what also is probably the most significant thing about this is that it does look to have a raised stomach area, and apparently, according to the X-rays, it would look like there are 3, by all intents and purposes, eggs in there, indicating that this species, or whatever this is, may have been reptilian in nature. Nevertheless, though, the only characteristical differences between these two is that one seems to have a more longer neck, and this particular one seems to have these metal implant, and of course this raised abdomen area where apparently it's housing 3, well, it looks like 3 eggs. Very interesting X-ray, this particular one. What we're actually looking at is what looks to be the implant, which is across this chest area, and also what looks to be the housing of 3 eggs. What's interesting, you can actually see the bone structures through the eggs. They are transparent somewhat, which is what you might expect from eggs being placed inside a body. You can see that the figure, the bone structure, seems a lot more complete in this particular X-ray. Again, doesn't look to be housing any lungs. And of course, if they are eggs, we have to question, would this be reptilian in nature? Would seem to be, according to the bone structure, that she is in fact an adult. So the absence of ball joints, again, in the lower part of the pelvis, again, are obviously missing. And it does have, again, the 3 fingers, which are very prominent, and the 3 toes. And of course, again, still remains a mystery. Okay, we're looking at the third body here, and of course its absence of a head, unfortunately. But what is probably the most interesting of all the 3 bodies is this particular one in a sitting posture, which gives us maybe some idea of, if this was a real creature, how it would have maybe moved around. Again, stereotypical here of the 3 fingers and the 3 toes, the sitting posture, what looks to be a vertebrae. And what's very interesting about this is that there does seem to be some form of skin. Also on top, we can see what looks to be the 2 side muscles holding the support of the neck muscles. Analysis has taken place on this. 2 independent analysts confirmed, one from Mexico, one from the United States, that this is over 1,000 years of age. And as you can see from that sitting posture, you can see what looks to be like a vertebrae coming down. You can see the very clear bone structures throughout his arms, hands, legs, and of course feet. Not too sure at this moment in time if this X-ray represents if it has any visible ball joints here in its hips. It's currently unknown. Again, from its sizing and its position, probably around about the 24 inches size, like the other 2 bodies. Again, a mystery.
Suddenly everything changed as we were introduced to Maria.
So what we're actually looking at here is something completely in a different ballpark than what we've been shown earlier. By all intents and purpose, we're looking at a body estimated to be 1,800 years old, I believe, from the analysis that's currently taking place, and in a fetal position. Bone structure, anatomy, legs look reasonably normal, arms look reasonably normal, until we come to the extremities. The extremities seem to show only 3 digits, 3 toes, no thumbs. Of course, these acting as balancers. We can see that there's also, which is very interesting, toenails, which we can see on the toes. We've also got dermal ridging, like fingerprints on the bottom of the feet, possibly also on the hands. Samples have been currently taken. Now this is a female, was initially thought to be a male, referred to as Albert, or Alberto, but it is a female and now referred to as Maria. Estimated size around about 5'6". Currently there's analysis taking place, DNA analysis taking place to ascertain is she fully human or not. What we're actually looking at here, Barry, is of course the X-ray of Maria, who we've just been examining. Clearly massive differences here, massive differences. We can clearly see the ball joints, which is a very human trait, obviously, in arms and legs. We can clearly also see the vertebrae and the backbone, and this is the legs coming up in its sitting position, in its fetal position. And across here, very faintly, you can actually see the fingers, which you can see consist of 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 4 sections, slightly different than what else we've seen here, but nevertheless, though, extremely long. And they do look like connected bone as well. I can't see anything here that leads me to believe it's been anatomically altered in any way. But of course, that's what the experts need to tell you, not myself. But at the end of the day, what is very interesting is that you can see how the hand has come across here and it's been x-rayed. I believe further x-rays are going to be taking place maybe tomorrow. We're looking at what looks to be human body, but the most obvious differences being the toes, being the fingers, and probably the anatomy of the actual hand and feet, because we've noted that there's a possibility that because the way the actual way the layout of the foot is, it would seem that it may not have walked as a human being would probably walked. Doesn't look like it would have had the same capabilities to do so. So its walking process may have been significantly different than anybody like you or me. We can see that her teeth quite relatively intact as well. Unsure of what age she approximately would have been when she'd actually died. You can obviously see the vertebrae here, the collarbone. Generally, she looks human by all accounts, except for one thing here. She's missing her earlobes, no ears, which is a trait often seen in amphibians like seals and sea lions. As to why she has no ears is a mystery. She does just have a hole either side. After receiving that phone call in the early hours of the morning to confirm a meeting, or someone was going to pick us up and take us to this so-called secret location, and the demands that were made, it was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. No cell phones, won't be allowed to film. I mean, I don't know. It did spark a lot of debate between myself and Barry, but we thought, hell, no way we're going back
halfway back round the world again without getting everything we could possibly get whilst we're here, because this is what we do. But nevertheless, though, we did reach the location and we met with a number of gentlemen. I think there were 5 of them in question, because people are going to ask why all the secrecy. I don't think it's about hyping up the bodies. I think it's about the government, because we already know that the government are all over this thing, absolutely. The police apparently have already raided a number of places trying to find the damn bodies. And of course it's very secret as to where they be. They want them. And they probably want the people that are involved in this, because they are probably looking at about 10-year stretch each. And that is probably the truth. We conducted some investigation, some research, and plenty of footage we were allowed to take of the bodies. There were certain things that we weren't allowed to show and weren't allowed to film. But at the end of the day, we managed to work with them and hopefully come away with something quite good. And they started to bring these things out in a sequential order of size, in a sense of speaking, from the smallest to the largest. And the first body that came out, they placed it on the table so delicately, and I was kind of holding back a grin, really, because it was clearly a fake, absolute fake, and it was only about 12 inches long. This, I've seen this before, it reared its head, excuse the pun, it reared its head around about 2015, 2016, and it had a fish's head. It's got a head of a fish, clearly with fish-type teeth. Its body is a bit of a mixer. Maybe there are some bones in there. It's definitely like from what you've seen in the x-rays. And it looked to be absolutely doctored. It was definitely doctored. Then then 3 other bodies were reeled out. 24 inches in size this time. But something a bit different with these. These were elongated skulls. There was apparently, from what we were told, a male and a female, and one which was undecisive because it was missing its head and it was in a sitting position. Now, how did they determine what was a female and male? Well, apparently there was one of them that seemed to have 3 eggs inside her. Yes, eggs, which would indicate that, well, it's some type of reptilian or reptile of some sort. For me, it's about where is the evidence, and I asked, and apparently, surprisingly, no analysis had been taken on these 2 bodies, the male and the so-called female one. No analysis whatsoever. And it's also through us looking over the x-rays and the anatomy that Barry brought up a really good theory that the actual skull being slightly elongated is very, very similar to a sloth skull's, and even some parts of the anatomy, and of course they even have 3 claws. So that's a possibility. That's a strong possibility that they may have someone somewhere may have utilised what they can get hold of, and then added and changed and mixed and basically created these models, which do actually have some bones in, which is interesting because obviously they know that was showing up on an x-ray. The only analysis that has taken place is done on the 3rd body, which is missing its head. And interestingly, this is an interesting point, it did seem to have skin on its back. I can confirm that. It did seem to have some type of skin. As for what that skin is or what it could be, I have no idea, but it did seem to have skin. There seemed to be some protruding maybe hairs as well, maybe, or ridges or something. It was really unusual. We're currently waiting on the DNA to come back to confirm if this thing is real or not. So those were those 3 bodies, And of course, then we come to the real big picture, the real crunch. The crunch is that they pulled out this big box and opened the lid, and hey presto, there she was in all her glory. Maria, the one that we've been seeing on the internet. And I was like, whoa. I think we both were, myself and Barry, a bit blown away, to be honest, because this is something in a completely different ballpark. Absolute, completely different ballpark. Let's just start. There's absolutely no shadow of doubt that we are dealing with a body here. And the analysis, being apparently 2 independent analyses which has taken place, shows around about maybe, I think, as far as we know, 1,800 years old, the body. And of course, we didn't even think straight away, look, it's got 3 fingers and 3 toes. So we're just in awe of that. This is, how often do you get, that's not an everyday occurrence, is it? And the first thing I thought was, it does have an elongated skull.
Maria does have an elongated skull, but not to the point where there's extra brain mass. It could be simply that is representation of boarding, which was a tradition that many cultures did from an early age. And of course, we come to the hands and the feet. Now, I asked the question about the analysis because apparently the analysis has been taking place, and we do know the parts where analysis is taking place from. But for me, if I was going in there, the first thing I'd do is look at what does it not make it human? What is it? It stands out and makes it unusual, and that is its hands and feet. So that is the first place I'd be taking samples from. It's obvious. You take samples from the locations in question. If we're going to take samples from under the arm or round the back, what are we going to come back with? Well, we're probably going to come back with a body of 1800 years old, and it's only going to give us the information that we currently already know, to be honest with you. We need to focus on the hands and feet. And I was actually surprised, because I asked the question, has samples been taken from the hands and feet? And the reply was no. Why? Why would you not take samples from the hands and the feet? That's the first thing I'd do going in there. I want to know. I want to know if these hands and these feet, these toes and fingers, belong to that body.
I'm the flight risk manager of this flight and a part of LATAM. Thank you, we hope to enjoy the trip with us. Les solicitamos que a partir de ese momento pongan sus equipos electrónicos en modo avión. Muchas gracias. Your attention please from now on, set your electronic device to airplane mode. Thank you.
We're here in Lima, we've had to take a flight down, and that's because we're here to attend the first international press release, which is going to be taking place very shortly. But whilst we were here, we wanted to take the opportunity to be able to talk to somebody, a representative of the Ministry of Tourism. And we got some very interesting facts when we conducted an interview last night. Some of the information is quite incredible. It would seem that the government are struggling, absolutely struggling to contain this problem about people who are tomb raiders, pillagers, whatever they're doing to trying to get a hold of these artifacts. They seem to be sold and are being sold across the world by some form of black market. Lenny, I believe you work for the Ministry of Tourism here in Peru, and you were actually commissioned to look into the shady world of the black market. Can I ask you, how damaging is the black market for the archaeological artifacts of Peru?
Well, Peru is a country so well known because of our heritage, cultural and natural heritage. So for us, it's quite important to conserve all of it. And one of our biggest problems is this black market.
The black market is one of the biggest problems.
Yes.
Was there any way to resolve that problem, or is it still happening today?
It's really a very complex situation, not only here, also in other countries. Right. With a rich heritage like ours. And this, I think, at personal level, that includes not only the laws, but also to know the laws.
So we're dealing with something which is international.
This is a very big change at international level because there is still demand. Yes. I consider that even all the time that this demand will continue paying so much huge amounts of money, it will exist this offer, the supply of this richness.
Right, and it's still happening. It's still happening today.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, because of from time to time we discover these pieces all around the world, and our government is still working for recovering them.
Right.
After a great effort.
Yes.
But it's not easy. But unfortunately, they go all across our boundaries, no?
Right, so it's extremely difficult.
Yes, to control.
Now, what's interesting
is also, whilst we're here, we've talking to a number of people out on the street, and they're all talking about the same thing. You know, they haven't heard anything about this press conference, which is taking place right under their noses. Nobody seems to know anything. That's how good the government have been at suppressing the amount of information getting out there about today's event. Also, what we did find is that about a month ago, there was a lot of information being put out and circulated, discrediting the finds, the discoveries, and that's fine. We can understand that, and we understand the reasons what might be taking place, because they do want to suppress this. You know, that these things are happening, artifacts being found, stolen, shipped abroad to other countries, and of course the losing the Peruvian history. These artifacts are going all over the place, and they do want to suppress that. And the only way to really do that is just basically call it fake. However, what's interesting is that that's generally that was a month ago. You know, it's all gone quiet now. This is all happening under people's noses. We don't even know. We've even talked to a number of staff at the hotel, and even those were like, what press announcement? You know, I mean, it's just incredible. We know it's here. People are here already, starting to turn up. You know, in the troves. So it's a real big event. We're going to try and get to the crux of all this information, because you know we're really having to move fast, because things are developing so fast at this moment. We're just trying to keep on our toes. We sensed at lunchtime today that something wasn't quite right. And by the time we got back from lunch, it had arrived. It was absolute chaos. Filming of an event, it's a press announcement. So we had to really talk to the head guy who'd arranged this, which is kind of on our side. He said, no problem. I'll send 3 emails over to the hotel informing them that you other guys are going to be filming on our behalf. Jaime Maussan has been the face of this press conference, but he also has been having his own problems, and this is what he had to say. Thank you for talking with us, Jaime. I wanted to ask you, you've been at the front of this, the forefront, the front runner. You're the face of this discovery. How's it been for you?
I think the person who deserves this credit is Thierry Jamin, the French who got the bodies, who collected everything, who has had the courage to confront anything, to take the risk. As investigator, probably I helped to really make these news, these findings go through, to be known by the world, and to understand that this is something really extraordinary. And for me, has been probably one of the most important investigations of my life.
Well, we understand samples that you've taken with your team, amongst other people, but what is your personal opinion? What do you think this mummy is?
I think this mummy is something else. I don't know if it came from a different planet or not, but it doesn't look human. All the features you can see are really something extraordinary, like the big fingers in the hands with 5 phalanges, the fingers in the foot with 4 phalanges are something that are not comparable to those of human beings. Also the head, if you see the head, is very big. If you see the bones in the arm, they are really separated, something very different than from our own. And there are, I am very sure, so many more differences from human beings. Then this is not human. What is it? I don't know. Where it came from? I don't know. We will find out.
Yeah. There's been a lot of international interest in regards to this find, but surprisingly and remarkably, it's been very quiet here in Peru. We believe the government have been trying to pressure and maybe keeping this quiet. You know, you called that. You went to the Ministry of Culture today. Can you say anything about how that meeting went?
No. I sent a letter and I asked for this meeting because we wanted to present them before the press conference all the information we had collected, all the evidences, all the scientists' analysis, and we couldn't do it. They said that we should send an email, and after a while they will answer to us. And I said, it's important you do it very fast because the bodies are in danger. The bodies are really being hurt by being outside. They need to be preserved. They say, yeah, sure, we will. But that was all. I know that the attitude of the government, the Ministry of Culture, is just to reject this finding. This is really disturbing because the real victim here is the truth. And I think that the truth should go to the world. The people around the world deserves the truth about this.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been led to believe that what's going to be discussed tomorrow at the first international press announcement, that the information could potentially not just change the planet, but literally, the whole universe. I mean, at the end of the day, the information has got to come out, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the plan, to present this to the world, and the world will decide how good is this investigation, how good the evidences are. And they are trying to stop this because they are fearful that this could be truth. They will have to rewritten the books of history. Everything we know should change or could change. I don't know, and it seems that it's too much for many, many people, and that is why, even without the evidence, even without the bodies, even without looking closely to this discovery, they are saying that this is not true, couldn't be true, that is all.
If it is successful tomorrow, and we do manage to get this information out, as best as we possibly can, do you think this is going to help the Ikari Institute to carry on their research and exploration?
Oh yeah, the attention of the world. If we can convince that we are honest, if we can convince them that there is no other interest than the truth, if we can convince the world that the evidences are real, then everything should change. And the Ikari Institute should attract all the attention from the world. And that is why I think tomorrow we will decide, or they will decide, or everybody will decide what is the future of humanity, because it is not just this discovery. If we cannot prove that these bodies are something else, then we won't be able to prove it ever. This is physical evidence. For the first time, it's in the hands of society, and they want to take it away from us. Don't you realize that? Don't you realize what is in play here tomorrow? I hope people will understand and will support this, because the evidences speak by themselves. You will hear the scientists, you will hear everybody that is around here, this investigation. You will see the documents of the investigation with carbon-14, with the DNA. You will find out how close we are to really understand that things are not like we have thought they were in the past. This is a different world, and the reality is very, very different than what we thought.
I think the timing tonight has been very coincidental for the government and a lot of scientists to come out tonight, just prior to the event tomorrow, to try and put their story forward and say it's all fake. But how can they do that if they've not seen or examined? How can they do that?
Because the scientists in Peru and probably around the world are very fearful. They organize an event today just to declare that our findings are a hoax, they are a fraud. They haven't seen them. They don't have the body. They don't have the x-rays. They don't have the CAT scans. They don't have anything. And besides that, they have not presented anything. There is not one single evidence, one single proof that backs their words. And this is amazing. I cannot believe what is happening here. I cannot believe it. People even think or listen to these people. For example, a taxidermist the other day saying that, oh, there is a mafia in Peru that they are creating this kind of hoaxes. And because you came with Gaia and so on, then they made this mummy for you. Are we so stupid? Are we, so gullible that we will accept anything they give to us? Absolutely not. Before we say anything, we investigate it, and we were convinced that this is real. Otherwise, we wouldn't have presented.
What the government are doing is that they're discrediting
any of these discoveries that have been found. And they're doing this without ever laying a single finger on any of the bodies.
Meanwhile, members of the scientific community within Peru banded together, and this is what they had to say. In the last few months, the alleged discovery of extraterrestrial mummies in our country has been publicised through an irresponsible, organised disinformation campaign. Testimonies and published images of this case allow to assert that these findings correspond undoubtedly to pre-Columbian human remains, cultural patrimony of the nation, maliciously manipulated and even mutilated to obtain an ad hoc appearance for commercial exploitation. Moreover, the exclusion of the entire related archaeological context is absolutely contrary to the scientific investigation of this kind of cultural finds. It is upon our authorities to make the corresponding accusations, since this production has numerous national and international norms that watch for the defence of cultural heritage. We hope these same authorities will seek the protection and correct investigation of these remains and their place of origin in order to stop looting and trafficking of human remains. We also expect exemplary sanctions for those responsible of this depredation of heritage that is of all Peruvians and humanity as a whole. Finally, the criminal abuse of corpses for petty ends violates human dignity in a profound way. Thus, exploitation of pre-Columbian mummies carried out by this organisation attacks and particularly offends the Andean culture, implying that its achievements were due to an illegal alien aid. We offer our best offices to collaborate with the authorities to demonstrate our statements in the corresponding instances. We also offer to participate in activities that would defend our patrimony and help educate the public about our ancestors and their legacy. Lima, 10th of July, 2017.
After working through some of the problems today, we managed to catch up with Dr. Edson Vivanco, a skeletal specialist, and he was more than happy to answer a few of our questions.
Bueno, me invitaron a participar en esta investigación para dar una opinión médica por los conocimientos anatómicos que yo podía describir y determinar si las piezas que pudimos revisarlas eran reales o se trataba de un fraude. Hay muchos detalles que nos indican que esto es real porque sería muy difícil recrear, por ejemplo, lo que sería un cráneo con sus detalles anatómicos. Por ejemplo, dentro de la configuración interna, efectivamente se trata de un cráneo porque cuenta con las suturas parietales, sus suturas occipitales, suturas frontales y demás rasgos anatómicos que tienen las características típicas de un cráneo. La primera impresión que fue algo muy extraño revisar una mano con solo 3 dedos, ¿no? Y con la presencia de 5 falanges. Efectivamente nos sorprende a todos porque nunca se ha descrito dentro de la literatura científica a un ser antropomorfo, bípedo, con solo 3 dedos y 5 falanges, lo cual nos llamó mucha la atención en seguir investigando y llegar al final de esto. Ahora, hay que determinar si esto es un fraude o realmente esto es real. Entonces, muy complicado es catalogarlo a simple vista como si fuese un fraude sin hacer estudios previos. Pero es muy importante, aunque sea un fraude o sea algo real, investigarlo. Eso es lo que muchos detractores, sin haber revisado las piezas o la evidencia que hemos podido obtener, y han dado un testimonio, un veredicto final diciendo que esto es armado, cuando no han tenido acceso a revisar las evidencias que hemos podido tener. Ahora, nosotros en ningún momento hemos determinado que esto tiene que ser específicamente alienígena, no. Nuestro objetivo principal es llegar al final de esto, sea cual sea el resultado. Si es un fraude, nosotros seremos los primeros en denunciarlo, pero primero lo estamos investigando. Hasta el momento no encontramos ningún indicio de algún tipo de modificación o algún tipo de alteración de los cuerpos, motivo por el cual nosotros decidimos seguir investigando. Ahora, Si se comprobase que esto es un fraude, lo cual sería un delito, nosotros vamos a ser los primeros en denunciarlo. Tenemos mucha evidencia que nos acerca a que esto va por el buen camino y que es real. ¿Por qué? Al examen físico no encontramos indicios de algún tipo de modificación. No encontramos grietas, ranuras, fisuras o algún tipo de alteración externa. Ahora, dentro de los estudios tomográficos que se pudieron realizar, nosotros tampoco encontramos algún indicio de algún tipo de modificación. Entonces nosotros queremos llegar a la verdad. Ahora, nuestras hipótesis, según a esta investigación. Primera hipótesis, se trata efectivamente de un ser biológico único, nunca antes descrito por la literatura científica. Segunda hipótesis, efectivamente puede ser un ser armado, pero hay que determinar quién ha armado o quién ha podido modificar estos seres. Por ejemplo, de las manos grandes. Nos parece muy raro una mano de 3 dedos. Ahora, si dentro de la hipótesis está que sufrió un proceso de modificación actual, se consideraría un delito y lo cual conlleva un fraude, lo cual tiene que ser investigado y sancionado con todo el rigor posible. Segunda hipótesis, ¿no? Si es armado, pero el carbono 14 nos demuestra que tiene más de 1800 años en 3 laboratorios distintos, estamos hablando de un material biológico. Entonces, si esto fue armado con material biológico de hace 1800 años y fue modificado hace 1800 años por los mismos nazcas o por las culturas antiguas, determinamos que esto fue un culto o fue algún proceso de modificación de la era o de la época. Ahora, ¿por qué lo hicieron? ¿Con qué intención lo hicieron? Es la misma pregunta que nosotros tenemos al ver tanta evidencia de seres antropomorfos, bípedos con solo 3 dedos en los telares, en los petroglifos y en toda la evidencia de toda la cultura nazca de seres antropomorfos con solo 3 dedos en manos y en pies. Entonces, motivo por el cual nosotros queremos llegar al final de esto, sea cual sea el resultado. Si es un fraude, como le vuelvo a recalcar, va a tener que ser sancionado, investigado y nosotros los primeros en denunciarlo. Pero si esto efectivamente es real, se tiene que dar el reconocimiento respectivo, pero en base de evidencias, con pruebas, que se sustente el porqué, ya sea falso, ya sea un fraude o ya sea auténtico. Ahora, si se trata de un ser biológico único, esto abre el campo a mayor investigación científica, lo cual nosotros invitamos a la comunidad científica a que puedan participar en esta investigación y llegar a una verdad absoluta, sea cual sea el resultado. Ese es el objetivo del Instituto Incari, que necesitamos llegar a una verdad y que no se catalogue un fraude sin antes revisar la evidencia. En mi punto de vista personal, yo creo que sí. En mi punto de vista personal. Pero la verdad no es la mía, sino es de la comunidad científica, la cual con un aporte de muchos investigadores, de muchos científicos, podemos llegar a una sola conclusión.
Dr. Jose Benitez, a forensic specialist, had his own descriptive interpretation.
In your professional opinion, have you found any unusualities, anything strange?
Sí. Encontré muchas particularidades que las hacen totalmente diferentes. A primera vista, pareciera ser un cuerpo normal, pero ya tomando detalle de cada uno de los segmentos del cuerpo, de la anatomía del cuerpo, se ven diferentes anomalías, como por ejemplo la cabeza es más grande, los ojos son más amplios, la nariz es más pequeña, no tiene oídos, el número de vértebras es menor al del ser humano, la distribución de los huesos es distinta, es más amplia, el número de dedos es de 3, igual en el miembro pélvico, en las piernas, y en los pies es también de 3 dedos. Esas diferencias son las más relevantes, aunque hemos podido encontrar datos más finos y detallados, como por ejemplo el número de falanges o el tamaño del lecho unguial de la uña. El polvo blanco con el que están cubiertos es un producto especial que se llama tierra de diatomea. Esta tierra de diatomea es un polvo de origen orgánico que tiene características muy especiales, ya que deseca, deshidrata y conserva piel y tejido, además de que tiene una característica repelente a los insectos, lo cual permitió que los insectos que comen piel muerta, los necrófagos, no se consumieran al cadáver, y además tiene propiedades antisépticas, lo que evitó la proliferación de bacterias y de hongos, haciendo que la conservación del cuerpo fuera mucho mejor, y el proceso de desecación, deshidratación, favoreciera el proceso natural de momificación en el que se encuentra actualmente.
Wonderful. Just one last question. How important is it for this information to get out with the announcement tomorrow?
Es muy importante porque estamos ante la posibilidad del descubrimiento de una estructura orgánica anatómicamente similar al humano, pero totalmente diferente en sus particularidades, y que tenemos que ir más allá en su conocimiento y en su estudio para poder determinar qué es y de dónde vino y cómo vivía.
We're here at the press conference, the international press conference. The very first one is taking place in Lima, Peru.
Gracias. Ahora sí, empezamos ya con la carnecita que le gusta a nuestros colegas periodistas. Vamos a empezar con la participación del doctor Edson Salazar, médico cirujano cusqueño, que tuvo la fortuna de poder analizar estos hallazgos desde cerca. Vamos a tener un aplauso para él, por favor. Edson Salazar.
Muy buenos días con todos. Quiero agradecer su asistencia. Y bueno, el objetivo principal de esta investigación desde el principio fue determinar si efectivamente se trataba de algo real o definitivamente de un fraude. Muy difícil es catalogarlo directamente como un fraude sin revisar las evidencias físicas. Nuestro objetivo se basaba en 3 parámetros: determinar si es verdad o es falso, determinar el tiempo de antigüedad y determinar si efectivamente se son seres biológicos o no. Nuestro objetivo principal tiene que llegar a la verdad, sea cual sea el resultado. Dentro de nuestras hipótesis, primera hipótesis, lo podemos considerar como un espécimen nuevo, nunca antes descrito por la literatura científica. 1. 2. Efectivamente pueden ser cuerpos modificados, armados, reconstituidos, puede ser, pero el detalle es quién lo hizo, cuándo lo hizo y por qué lo hicieron.
Y por tanto, pues queremos rechazar cualquiera de las acusaciones que se han venido haciendo de que este equipo ha modificado esos cuerpos, que lo ha hecho en un taller de Nazca. Aquí hay mucha gente de Nazca, que nos digan en qué taller se hizo esto. Estamos hablando de modificaciones, como serán corroboradas por los propios científicos especialistas, que dejarían huella permanente, sobre todo en momias, como se ha podido demostrar y lo vamos a presentar, que tienen más de 1700 años de antigüedad. Es decir, esas momias casualmente corresponden al mismo tiempo que tienen las llamadas líneas de Nazca, al menos la antigüedad que se les ha dado. Por tanto, podría haber una correlación entre la existencia y la muerte de estas momias, su presencia en este lugar y el desarrollo de estos misterios arqueológicos que existen en Nazca, que hasta el día de hoy no tiene una respuesta. ¿Por qué se hicieron estas figuras de cientos de metros si solo podían ser observadas desde las alturas? ¿Cómo pudieron hacerse con tal precisión si no existían satélites ni GPS? Si ustedes ven las figuras, la araña, el mono, el colibrí, el ave, son perfectas. no hay ninguna falla en todo su trazo. Por tanto, esto implicaría haber tenido algún tipo de equipo desarrollado. Hasta hoy la ciencia no ha podido resolver este misterio. Yo ayer intenté ver al ministro de Cultura, a don Salvador del Solar, para que escuchara esto que vamos a presentar aquí, incluso antes que los medios, para que él estuviera informado. No me recibieron. En el mes de enero, el señor Thierry Yamín presentó una carta al Ministerio de Cultura solicitando su participación, dada la importancia y trascendencia de estos hallazgos. Hasta el mes de abril no había recibido respuesta. Fue después de conocer esta situación que nosotros, en nuestra calidad de investigadores, decidimos involucrarnos, porque era evidente que las autoridades, dado el tipo de tema que se trataba, no estaban dispuestas a participar. Estas son las únicas imágenes que tenemos. Quiero aclarar otra cosa: no conocemos el lugar, no hemos estado ahí. Esta es supuestamente la entrada al sitio. Estas son algunas de las partes internas, el ataúd donde se dice que estaban estas especies, porque también quiero decirles, son 2 especies, no es una la que vamos a ver hoy, son 2. Y una es mucho más extraña que lo que ustedes han visto hasta el momento.
Bajen los teléfonos.
Les hemos llamado urpus a estos porque del quechua, perdón por la falta de ortografía, no es mía.
Celulares.
Teléfono. Que dice que el urpus en quechua es modelo de un humano, humanoide, animal o personaje de ficción. Se ha dicho en los últimos días, una persona llamada Paul Ronceros presentó estos cuerpos, que efectivamente nosotros lo descubrimos desde el primer momento de la investigación. Estos cuerpos no corresponden a un ser orgánico. De acuerdo a los científicos, y ustedes les podrán hacer las preguntas, estos cuerpos, como vemos aquí, tienen separación en las coyunturas muy extrañas, tienen una forma del cuerpo muy extraño como para ser considerados orgánicos. Nunca lo hicimos. Sin embargo, sí pensamos que son antiguos. De acuerdo a la persona que los encontró, fueron localizados en el mismo lugar, en la misma tumba. Es decir, que no son, como se señaló en un estudio, supuestamente animales modernos. Eso es lo que dijo el Ministerio de Cultura. No existen los animales modernos. Todos los animales son antiguos. Además, si se trata de seres orgánicos o conglomerados orgánicos de huesos y de piel, entonces dicen que son modernos, sin haber realizado ningún análisis de carbono 14. ¿Cómo se puede llegar a una conclusión tan definitiva? Porque esto ya lo han declarado que no es patrimonio nacional. Señores peruanos, lo están perdiendo. Yo me lo puedo llevar hoy a México, porque esto ya no es patrimonio nacional, esto es una artesanía. Entonces, si es así, lo están perdiendo. Creo que es un error. O sea, simplemente por una actitud visceral o de estar en contra de esto, creo que se está cometiendo un grave error. Estas son las manos tridáctilas que encontramos con, si ven ustedes, con implantes. Estos implantes deben de ser estudiados. Estos implantes, nadie ha hablado de ello, pueden ser tecnología, parece que son de oro, no estamos seguros. Aquí tenemos estas manos tridáctilas. A esta, ¿por qué está cortada? Porque no hay más remedio. Son 3 manos. Una de ellas tuvo que ser sacrificada para obtener los análisis que ahorita voy a mostrar, que nos dan una antigüedad de varios miles de años de estas manos. No sé si también quieran decir que se las cortamos a otras momias y también las rearmamos. No nos han todavía acusado de ello, pero pues a lo mejor pronto lo van a hacer. Además, respondo cualquier acusación, porque para hacerla van a tener que demostrar que lo que decimos no es verdad. Aquí está una de las radiografías, podemos ver claramente que tiene un implante. Pueden ver ustedes hasta 6 falanges perfectamente ordenadas, perfectamente de tamaño. Aquí ni el mejor cirujano de mano del mundo hubiera podido hacer esto. Aquí van a ver ustedes las partes del metacarpo. Ya los especialistas, yo no soy, les dirán. Otra mano es precisamente la que se usó para las muestras, donde se ven todos esos detalles. Vean ustedes, aquí parecen ser reales, ¿verdad? También encontraron, el señor Thierry Amin nos presentó estas cabezas, que son también muy extrañas, son de seres pequeños, son orgánicos, confirmado. ¿Y esto qué es? No son artesanías, Estas son cabezas exactamente como se encontraron. Es de una de las dos especies de la cual vamos a hablar más extensamente en un segundo. Como ven ustedes, existen muchos detalles. Por favor, pregúntenle al doctor Edson. Él fue el primero que las investigó. Los doctores José de Jesús Arce, científico forense mexicano del más alto nivel, no es ningún ufólogo, ni tampoco lo es el doctor José de la Cruz Ríos, biólogo con más de 15 años de experiencia. Aquí vemos también las radiografías de estas cabezas. No quiero abundar en detalles, no me corresponde. Simplemente estas son las evidencias de las dos cabezas, que tienen muchas razones por las cuales hablar de ellas y encontrar exactamente qué son.
What we've had to actually digest in this presentation that's just taken place, I mean, it's quite a long one and a lot of questions and a lot of material, literally an overload of material. There were some very interesting things regarding the anatomical report. Now, this particular report, it features, and we first, when we thought, looking at Maria, that she only had 2 anomalies. Okay, her hands, her feet, maybe a slightly elongated head, no ears, and that was pretty much it. But no, far from it. Apparently, this anatomical report features not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just keeps going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the list goes on of these anomalies in the body, things that you wouldn't find in a human body, the shaping of the bones, to the minor little details. Far too many that I can explain. I can't explain that. You know, she's an absolute wondrous work of art, you know, which she should be on display somewhere, you know, or she's real. One of the two. I wouldn't want to call it. And of course, not just that. You know, there's a big thing in regarding this powder, this white powder, and it's been mentioned many times over the internet since its release over social media that people think it's plaster. It's plaster. It's fake. It's plaster. And, well, we've got news, guys. The news is out. It's not plaster. In fact, we actually know what its name is, and it's also purposely apparently put on the body as a preservative. It kills bacteria. It keeps things in dry conditions. We keep things perfect for a very, very long time. Exactly what we're actually seeing in Maria. And apart from that, there's also more information regarding from a biologist. It was there as well. Their report came forward, and that was really interesting. Of course, the downside of it is that they've kind of come out half guns. What they've done is they've gone and done a press conference, the first international press conference of all, in the capital of Peru, and they've not brought all the guns with them. In fact, they left the cannons at home. There is not any information from the DNA yet. It's still out there, it's still being conducted. I know it takes time, I know it takes money, but surely you probably hold back, not send your infantry in without your cannons. You know, your cannons need to be drawn, and of course they haven't done that. So do you know what? Very good, very excellent in regarding the information regarding the bone structure anomalies in Maria, and also the other anomalies found, but no DNA, and that basically means that it took a dive bomb. As far as we're concerned, it went flat. What they needed is DNA, and if they didn't have the DNA, they maybe should have held off on the press conference until they had it.
We've recorded her findings and boarded her flight back to the UK, leaving behind a black market of bribes, grave robbing and deceit. Although we can sympathise with the Peruvian government in its attempts to suppress the hemorrhage of ancient artefacts, we strongly disagree with the way it tried to discredit the mummified remains before any tests had been confirmed. So it comes to this. Strong scientific analysis and results are necessary to prove or disprove the claims posed by both camps. The results need to be viewed by the world and not a back alley boardroom where possible life-changing discoveries such as these can easily be buried again. We have the results. We are going to tell the world, and we are going to expose the truth